Our sponsors for this episode are MTO Commercial and Residential Cleaning Services. MTO has been, still is, and will always be a locally owned and operated company. Paula started MTO in 1994 and has been serving Harvey County residents ever since. If you're looking for a one-time clean or a weekly, bi-weekly, or a monthly spruce-up, no need to worry. MTO gives free estimates. Give Paula a call at 316-288-9141. That's 316-288-9141. Shelter Insurance. Bradley Cook with Shelter Insurance is located at 227 West Broadway Street. That's 227 West Broadway Street in Newton, Kansas. You can give them a call at 316-283-4241. That's 316-283-4241. Bradley Cook. Bradley serving Newton, Kansas and surrounding areas. Anderson Retail Liquor, located at 1411 North Main in Newton. That's 1411 North Main in Newton. Open 7 days a week, Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m., Friday and Saturday, 9 to 11, and Sundays from 12 to 8. You can also give them a call at 316-283-4432. That's 316-283-4432. Stop in and check them out. Well, hello, everybody, and hello, Andy and Chad. How was your guys' last couple of weeks?
Busy.
You go first.
Busy. Right. And I'm going to be straight, right? You know, right now, at this very moment, man, you guys are catching me at a rough period because my brain is totally mush because of what I've been going through for the last week or so. But well, I'll just do my best.
I got faith in you, Chad.
Scramble some eggs. We'll be all right.
Yeah. They're scrambled all right, man. I'm telling you what.
I have faith in you. I always have faith in you, Chad, that you're the kind of guy that even when you're running on empty, by goodness, you're going to make it to that gas station.
Well, yep. I'm gonna find that little extra drop right there.
I love it.
So, and then about an hour from now, I'll just collapse. That's the way it'll work.
Yeah.
So, there you go.
Andy?
Just trying to play chess, man. Having a good time.
Good.
Yep.
Very good. Yeah,
Yep.
Very good. Chess is a wonderful game.
A lot going on. A lot of angles. Enjoying it.
Yeah, very good, very good. Before we get started on the program this week, I just want to cover some things, just to give a recap. I titled it Opinion, Perception, and Projection. But I think it's important that we talk briefly about this podcast, what we do here, and then some I suppose, coming and going both ways. First of all, this is a program where we talk about not only local stuff, but we talk about, state and national stuff. Many of the things that we do talk about have some controversy in them. That's not all the time. We don't want to just be a all controversial all the time podcast. We're not into the rage bait. We're not into the clickbait. We try to stay away from that. We just try to provide a very wholesome and environment. We focus on being informative, educational, and entertaining. Another thing that I want to point out too is that Chad is not myself, Andy is not myself, I'm not them. And when we have these discussions, okay, many times there might be some emotion involved. We talk about controversial things. Sometimes I have an opinion that is no reflection on Andy or Chad, just like I'm not responsible for what Andy or Chad have to say on the program. But just thinking about this here, this is an opinionated podcast, okay? How you perceive what we are saying and how we perceive things and then have a discussion over it is a very important thing, because everybody's entitled to their opinion. Everybody's entitled to their perception of events. We all see things through a different lens, through our life, the whole thing, okay? And then finally, projection. So we all have a tendency to do it, but I just want to make very clear the fact that oftentimes when we're having these discussions, it's very easy for people to project their own biases and opinion and perception onto things that we're talking about. So make sure that if there's anything that we need to clarify, ask, feel free to reach out to any of us. All of us are open books. We do this as in a way in which we don't agree on everything. Chad, do you agree with everything Lance says?
No.
Andy? Right? No. He's like, hell no. Okay, but here's the thing.
We have our battles.
Yeah, and I'll
it's
tell
all
you,
good.
sometimes, okay, and the truth is that I'm a passionate person. Most people know me as an extrovert. There are times in which, I falter a little bit. I try to make sure that whatever I say is not insulting people. I'm not trying to do that here. This is not a podcast for Lance to grind some kind of axe or anything like that. And I know I'm taking up a lot of time here on this podcast, but I just had a conversation today with someone which clarified that yes, I should cover this. And it was somebody that is near and dear to my heart, and they do not see things the way I see things. I really want to do a good job with this program. I don't want this to be Lance's podcast. I'm adamant that this needs to be our community podcast. And we talked a little bit about one particular hot topic issue that we will talk about on the program that's been happening and going around, and it's some legislation that's at the state level. There's a lot of stuff going on at the federal level, and forgive my monologue, but we don't see eye to eye on it, and that's okay. And we're able to have a passionate, articulate, if you want to call it controversial conversation, and both of us walk away knowing that the other person really has their best intentions, that they're invested just like I am, and we can move on as friends. So obviously, there's been times I just got to apologize where I have gotten a little bit excited about something. I don't mean to be that way, and I'm sure it won't be the last time that it happens, because just the nature of what we're talking about sometimes invokes strong emotions, which then incurs strong opinions, but we can do that in a wholesome, incredible way. So, all that being said, Chad, I had to say it, everybody. What do we got for local news?
We finally have a fireworks calendar.
I missed it.
Yeah.
I really wanted to see how that. I haven't seen it yet. Can you give me a Cliff Notes?
Sure. The Cliff Notes. There wasn't a whole lot of discussion.
Okay. Interesting.
Believe it or not. There was, I should say there wasn't a whole lot of discussion amongst the commissioners. There were a number of people who wanted to speak to the commission about what they believe needs to happen.
Pros and cons, both sides of the aisle.
Both sides.
Yeah, that's good.
And I just gonna be straight up honest. If you want to know what those conversations were, go back 2 weeks and read the editorial that I wrote where I predicted what people would say, because that's what was said. I mean,
and you've only seen this 15 times?
Yeah, 15, 20, something like that. I mean, So, I heard all the same, pretty much the same talking points, and at the end, and then at the end of the day, what the commission decided to do, and it's kind of nutty when you think about it. They kind of threw out what they did 2 weeks ago. Not completely, but they definitely they modified it big time. So now here, and there was a really big win here for the people like Kathy Valentine, who think, dude, we need to shoot just one day and that's it. Mm-hmm. And the reasons most people have that attitude is they don't like staying up all night. They don't like it that their neighbors are still shooting stuff off at 3 o'clock in the morning. Those folks got a huge, huge win that nobody talked about. So I'll get to that in a second, because what they came up with is that they will allow for the sales of fireworks from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. from June 27th through July 5.
And that's a sales piece.
Yep.
That's a sales piece.
And is that solid ongoing now?
Well, not necessarily.
Okay.
They didn't do a long-standing ordinance. I mean,
Yeah,
it's still
they didn't do
year.
I mean, there was a little discussion about whether they should, and I think what's going to be the test is how things go this year.
Fair.
Right? Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that's the test for every commissioner, but I'm pretty sure that there's a couple of commissioners that are just going to kind of watch how things go this year, and if they feel like things go well, that there are some things that they're going to try and push to make permanent. And hey, more power to you, because everybody's heard me say we need some consistency and we need some common sense.
The more I think about it, right, because the only objection that was coming up, that something I didn't think about, was from Rich. and he had talked about how the days move of the week. But the more I sit on that, the more I realize, does 2 or 3 days here or there really matter, rather than have the consistency and just say, this is what it is and let's move it through. And so as a community member, the consistency is important. I know we won't all agree, but disagreeing every single time, every time, it's just a lot of stress.
Rich did make a comment this is Wednesday, right? Last night. That I do agree with. He made the statement. He says he thinks that the commission needs to do the hard work, and they need to do it every year.
Yeah. Interesting.
And you know what? I actually agree with that.
Do you? Yeah.
And you know
I
what'd be
really do,
interesting?
because they need. I mean, no matter what they come up with, even if it's going to be quote unquote permanent, you still got to consider kind of all the angles on the thing before you make your final decision. And the changing of the day of the week, that is something that changes the
Dynamics,
environment,
absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
Because most people don't have to work, and I'm saying most, but most people are not going to have to work on July 5th, right? And this year, most people aren't going to have to work on July 6th.
Which is the point he was making.
That is not
moves.
exactly. That is not the case when your 4th of July, like it did last year, falls on a Thursday.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it's a preference thing for myself, because I'm a systems guy. I will like to throw everything into a system as much as possible, almost to a fault. So that's just me being me, right? So I differ with you on this, on my opinion, just because of my way of operating for me.
Right.
And that's what a lot of us get caught up into, right?
Yeah.
Whether it be Mrs. Valentine, who I need to apologize to. I had said some stuff on the last podcast that I shouldn't have said. And it wasn't, I don't think it was mean or nasty. It's just something I should have had a cup of coffee with her and talked to her about, because we have had a conversation about some stuff, and we were supposed to have coffee, and I need to follow up with her on that. So I shouldn't have said anything until I talked to her first. And even then, shouldn't have said nothing after. So apologize to Kathy. And I'll look forward to texting her and getting a cup of coffee with her. But for me and my preference, just like she has her preference, is why I went into that. And somebody else will have another preference. Every commission, depending on the makeup of that commission, is also going to have their. So this commission could decide to set it in stone for 3-4 years. But anytime another commission wants to revisit that, it can be pulled right back up. So it's going to be at the behest of that team at that time. So I can see where the ongoing collaboration or debate is probably just going to be what it's going to be.
Yep. Yeah. So the sales part of this, and if you're really paying close attention, you'll see where I think there was a win. The sales part is 10 a.m., 10 p.m., 27 through 5, and that mirrors state statute. The state sets forth a sales season,
Like a window, if you will.
A window.
Yep.
And the state allows every organization, every municipality to be more restrictive if they want to, but they can't be less restrictive. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So it's 10 a.m., 10 p.m. for that period. Discharge. When the city says you can legally shoot them, is 10 a.m. to midnight, July 2, 3, 4, and 5. So Saturday, you got your weekend day. And obviously you've got your 4th of July day. Here's where the win is for guys like me who are going to have to go to work on the 6th or on maybe even on the 5th or whatever day. The city, and I'm going partially off of memory here, but the city has only really once cut off sales before discharge. They've only given that 2-hour window that I can remember once, and it was one day. And this is something that the city is, no one is giving them credit for doing. It is a very proactive move, to assist those persons who think it's okay to keep your neighbors awake until 3 a.m. Because it's not okay. And for all these years, we've been telling, and the city's been telling those people, you got to stop at midnight. But also throughout all these years, we've been allowing them to walk into a tent
up until the time you got to stop firing them off.
And as long as they're out of that tent by midnight, they're okay. So they're walking out with an armload of stuff at midnight. I'm telling you, they're not going to get done by midnight.
Yeah.
That's just the way it's going to be. So they built in a window for those folks. And straight up, if you're going to be hardcore enough about trying to keep me up at 3 a.m., okay, that at 11:15 you're like, crap, I need more fireworks. We're driving to Wichita. Go right ahead. Drive to Wichita. Right. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to call your butt in when you wake me up at 3 a.m.
Well, and I got to say, I watched that. I think it was a win. I was critical a couple weeks ago about the way the meeting panned out, if you want to look at it that way. I thought emotions ran high. And this time that wasn't the case. And I really think that there was a win that took place here for all intents and purposes. That, we wanted to see our commission work together. We wanted to see the people that came there and had something to say to be respected. The people that were on both sides of the aisle respected one another.
Yes, they did.
It was just an entirely different vibe or energy, I'll say, from the 2 weeks ago to what happened last night. And people, I know, agree with that because I've had many discussions over the last 2 weeks with that. So, speaking of another win at the city, and we didn't get to cover this, obviously, because we didn't have a program last week, but Ed Bonham, correct, Chad? Bonham is now the Newton City engineer. He's going to take over Suzanne Loomis's place. We've already given Suzanne Loomis some kudos in the past for all that she's invested into the community. It's very, very difficult to see you leave. We know that you have spent a lifetime here of just making sure that our community is prosperous, that all the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed, and that we move forward in a way that future generations will not have things that they have to deal with based upon choices that the engineering department made. So kudos to Suzanne Loomis. We welcome you, Ed. He's not new to Newton, but he is definitely going to do a good job as our city engineer. I don't think that they could have picked a better person. I mean, I wasn't there, saw the resumes. Maybe somebody would argue with that, but I really like to see our commission and our Daniela, our city manager, promote from within. I think that's a great culture. It's a great thing to do. This person's been here. They know the ins and outs, and they were really promoted from within their staff that they've already had. Now they're going to have to, maybe whoever moves into his place or whatever the case may be, but we'll have somebody new. I just want to say, good job. That's a huge win for the city. I think that's great. I don't know if you guys want to comment on that, or maybe Chad, a couple other things that are not necessarily wins, but we're entering some troubled waters I'd like you to talk about. I saw 2 different articles over the last 2 weeks that talked about what is going on at the federal level and federal funding and how that might impact our Department of Aging, which is not city exclusive, but county, as well as the airport. I know there was an article just recently about the airport and also the Department of Aging and how things that are happening at a federal level are having or potentially could have some local consequences.
Well, it's very much this is what could happen. It's not. There's nothing set in stone. There's a bunch of battles to be fought, and so this is just it really is what could happen. And so when it comes to the airport, the FAA is continuing to say, just keep moving forward. Everything's fine. You're not going to be affected by any of this stuff that's been coming out. The Department on Aging is not quite so lucky, but they have multiple issues, right? And some of the other departments that we heard from this week, which is going to be a story that I publish on Saturday. Quite honestly, I just haven't had time in the last 24 hours to go through all my notes to get it done. But not only is there the memo from OMB that froze federal grant funds, and it was very broad. That was followed by an executive order. All of that is tied up in court now. Okay. And there can be all kinds of debates about what role the court needs to have here. Bottom line, the court is performing its constitutional check. And the effects could be pretty rough. The other part of this is that we don't have a budget approved at the federal level past March 14th. And if they're not able to get something, then we're going to enter into things that we haven't seen in a while. And one of them is, at one time they called it sequestration, and it means that, and this is directly from the Department of Aging now, but it means that the folks that are working in the Department on Aging will be expected to come to work, expected to do their jobs, and either they'll get a paycheck from the county, or they'll just have to wait on Congress to pass a budget and hope that that budget actually extends the funding for the program and for what they're doing. If it doesn't, then the programs are going to have to shut down because the money's not going to be there.
Yeah, and Andy, let me pick your brain just briefly here. I know we've talked in many discussions about what we're seeing that's going on at the federal level, and I have some things to cover at the federal level, so I don't want us necessarily go there yet. But you know, this isn't the first time that we've seen situations at the federal level where they come up to crunch time. You know, the final buzzer's getting ready to blow, and they're just in the nick of time deciding on a federal budget. You know, we've even had times where they've pretty much shut the government down minus, you know, necessary funding. Do you see this as something that is gaining a lot of unneeded fear, or is there, I'm just trying to kind of figure it out or pick your brain of is this a process that you believe we're just going to see happen like it always happens, and that there might be some unneeded fear and hysteria when it comes to this? Or is it something that, you know, we're going to see a lot of changes take place? So brace yourself.
I think a little bit of both. I think fear is kind of what sells in a lot of areas, in a lot of different spaces. There is rapid change happening. I think there's going to be some drop balls with some of the changes that are happening. But as long, in my mind, as 80% of it turns out to be good long term, those drop balls are going to happen because we need to make changes and we need to do things differently. So I do think it's driven by a lot of fear. I mean, I can play in the hypotheticals all day long and then drive myself crazy. But even over the last, you know, few weeks since this major changes happened, we've had a lot of flags thrown that turned out to be nothing burgers, and not all of them, but most, I would say. And there's, you know, when you see the threads and the consistent chimes that are out there in the ether across, you know, there was some titles and words that people are starting to gather around and things. And when I see that stuff, it's just the same playbook, right? So do I want to be involved or not? And I choose not to. I try to do my best to read between the lines and anticipate. So you don't want to be stupid about it in my mind's eye. But I'm not going to sit around and worry about things until I see the hammer drop. And even after that, when people say the hammer's going to drop, usually it doesn't. Yeah. Or it's a weak form of what we thought would happen, and our anticipation was a lot worse than what actually happened. So I try to stay out of the fringes unless it affects me personally. You know, I got tariff things. I do some international business and things that I work along and with and in different countries. And so I have emails that come in from people that I work with, imports and exports, and agents and brokers that I work with, that I've worked with for over 15 years, right? And so they'll send me updates, and I've been getting those updates, and it's like what, Chad, you were referring to. Is this could happen. This could happen. You know, this 10%, this 15%, this 20%, the steal over here. You know, and at the end of the day, none of it's happened. And I was told by one of our partners that we work with that 100% for sure. 2 weeks ago, our prices were going to go up dramatically, 20 or 30%, and they just haven't. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I don't want to get into the weeds, but I do pay attention to those things because I'm literally affected financially by it.
Yeah, business model. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, and a lot of people are freaking out about it. But if my brokers are sending me the information, they're sending, and the media is playing that same thing, which they are, I'd be freaking out if I didn't see the other side of it, which it hasn't hit me yet, and I don't see it really happening quite yet. So to each their own, right? Everybody has their own lenses. They look at the world in their own way. But I would really challenge people to stay away from the headlines and the fear tactics. You don't want to be ignorant. You want to be prepared for these things can happen. People can come into your schools looking for kids. That can happen, but it hasn't happened yet that I know of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
You know, and I appreciate that take on that. We will talk. Well, I guess now might be a good time. I wanted to go on to the legislative update before we went national. One thing I want to cover about the legislative update is there's always a gentleman that shows up to every legislative update, and I'm not going to say his name, but every time he asks the question, and God bless his heart, every time he asks the question, he says, what are you going to do about, and how do you feel about a convention of states in which states can propose to the federal government that they have to have a balanced budget? Because we have racked up so much debt, that we have so many unfunded liabilities. If we sold, and this is what he says, if we sold everything that we had, we would not be able to pay for the debt that we owe. And I look at this in a kind of way, it's like, well, I could sell everything I have and not be able to pay for some of the debt I owe. I mean, you know, you get into this home, right? You buy a house. Well, if you're, you know, that amount of your house that you're paying for, you could today, right now, sell everything you owe and not be able to pay off your house. So then technically, I'm in this situation. Everybody that owns a house is in this situation. Theoretically, not saying that you couldn't sell your house and pay off your house, you know, but it's this idea. So did you guys by any chance watch the legislative update?
No. I have not seen that one yet either, and I missed it that Saturday morning.
It's worth watching. You know, when it's the Newton Area Chamber of Commerce does a legislative update. They do a wonderful job. Chip Westfall, former Harvey County Commissioner, is the one that the moderator, I believe, does a great job. This time there was some hot button issues. One in particular that drew a crowd, and it was the Help Not Harm Act. There was, it was on our list to talk about. We haven't really talked about it in depth, but I just want to get your guys' quick take, like 30-second, 1 minute bite on the Help Not Harm Act. As it stands right now, both the Senate and the House has passed this. I believe they have a veto majority proof. They have enough to get through to override the governor's veto if the governor chooses to veto it, and the governor did choose to veto it. What are your guys' thoughts? You want me to go first and give you my thought on it? Okay, my thought is this. I am all for people being able to be who they want to be and do what they want to do. Okay? But I do believe that there's got to be a limit when it comes to choices that our children make. You know, you can't hardly get a tattoo. You can't. I mean, I could make a list of all the things that our government has intervened on behalf of our youth. Even if I, as a parent, want to be like, here's a pack of cigarettes, son, you know, smoke this pack of cigarettes. I mean, that's not technically legal. You still can't go buy, you still can't operate in commerce to be able to go get a tattoo or what. I mean, you know, and that's could be, you can argue this, but
you can watch Smokey and the Bandit with your kid, but you can't give them a bottle of Coors to find out what they're talking about in the movie.
Yes. And I suppose in the gray area, you know, there are parents that do allow their child to have some wine at Thanksgiving. I mean, so there's a gray area there, and I understand that there's a gray area there, but it seems like by overwhelming margins, and it was a pretty big deal when it came to people running, that was a topic, and when people voted, that was one of the reasons they voted one way or the other. I mean, it's pretty decisive when it came to that. So I understand, and I think it's rightly named Help Not Harm Act, because if a youth wants to do something that is irreversible to themselves, that I believe there should be a period of time that doesn't happen until they become an adult, and then they can make their own decisions.
The only time nobody in my life is okay with that. Mutilating children. Done for me in my circle of influence. And I haven't talked to one person about this topic, because people don't bring it up with me, because it's not a question for me if that's okay or not okay. And unfortunately, I think that there are adults that have issues that push those issues off on their kids. So on behalf of the kids, I'm grateful that this is coming out, where at least you'll let that child get to at least 18 and hope they have a fighting chance when they have adults in their life that are not okay in suggesting they do that before they do all kinds of other things up until that age. It's pretty interesting to me, that argument. Again, I've seen it online. It's shocking to me, but I'm not into it, and I'm grateful that they're pushing it through.
Yeah.
For the state of Kansas.
Chad, what do you think? Not to throw you under the bus on a hot topic issue where
you can bypass
into
it.
the weeds or anything.
Your career is different.
But and I'm not saying this to be offensive, folks. You know, this is something that a lot of people are talking about. I'd say out of all the questions that were asked there during the legislative update, and I encourage people to watch it. It's a little bit difficult to hear, but you can, turn your volume all the way up and you can hear it. That was a repetitive question that came up.
Interesting.
So I mean, there was actually a point in time in which they had all the people that were there who were wanting to talk about or support individuals that felt that this bill crossed the line.
So it hurt them.
Yes.
Because they couldn't do those things to their children.
Yeah, yes, and I'll frame it in this way. For their child who believes that they were need to do that for their own mental health, they feel like
they have
they're
examples, or do they have kids there?
You didn't see the crowd.
No,
they didn't show the crowd,
okay.
so it's quite possible. Okay, so how do I articulate this in a way? Let me get my thought. What I'm saying is let's say that my child feels that they are neither a boy nor a girl, and that maybe they were.
Is this one of those furry things?
Nah, I mean, not born in the wrong body, or what? Let's just say that they are.
That's too much for me. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm not that.
So yeah, we could get right. You're not stupid.
I'm a gorilla or something that doesn't know how to be open-minded or something in this one.
I don't think.
And when it comes to this topic, I can't even believe we're talking about it.
Yeah, well, that's
where I'm at,
and I'm with you. To say that there needs to be legislation.
And I love people, but at some point, I worked in the mental health facilities and institutions, and I've seen a lot of stuff. And all the kids that lived where I worked came from interesting places with parents that were very sick. And this is the kind of stuff we dealt with. And I've got hundreds of reps of working with children that did not have supportive families, or families that hurt them, raped them, did all kinds of stuff to them. And there's a lot of unhealthy adults that will hurt their kids. And some people can't see how that can happen, and they try to cloak it with another thing. But mental health is real. Yeah. And it's an issue. And we've got to love those people, but we've got to love them the right way and not into oblivion. And if you read books, and there's data and information out there where research has been done where people have had changes, and the regrets that they have afterwards, and the anger and frustration and the suicide rate is unbelievable. And so when you're 18 and you want to make those decisions, God bless you. I'll still respect and love everybody to the best of my ability. But I just can't see a parent pushing that stuff off on kiddos. I can't go there. I can't get there. It's wild that we have to put things into place to protect
for legislation.
Kids like that.
Yeah, and it's one thing I've always instructed to my kids, because I've made choices in my life as a youth that had irreversible, lifelong consequences. And when I was that age, I sure thought that I knew what I was doing and how my situation would turn out. It was not rational. That frontal lobe had not been developed yet.
Right.
And I had to experience lifelong consequences. And so, my heart goes out to those individuals. Chad, you got anything on this, or you want to just skip on by?
Well, I haven't read the entire bill yet. But in my skims, I think, and I'm just so tired of the way they write this stuff. Just be freaking clear what you're wanting to do. But I think that it allows for psychological care.
In the realm of, yes.
As long as they're not prescribing any drugs or discussing surgeries. I mean, that's my reading.
And I would agree
I
with
may
that.
be right. I may be wrong. I have no idea if I'm right or wrong. Because
You haven't dug into it too deep.
I have to dig into it even.
Yeah.
I got to dig deeper, meaning I got to read it in its entirety and read it multiple times to try, because, again,
It's legalese.
yes. And if I have a complaint with just about every bill that comes out of the legislature, would you just write it clear? Be clear about what you want. Because I don't want to have to go refer to subsection B. And I'm telling you what.
A legal dictionary. Shall thou whip
I'm
us?
just going to tell you, when I'm sitting in an intake room with a kid and they've come in on a charge, I have to look up the charge and I have to look up the statute and then I have to read it, and it's like, as provided in subsection B/CD3. And I'm like, no, just tell me what you frickin' mean. Okay?
Do you think that's by design?
I don't know. But if I'm right and it allows for that psychological care to be given, I don't give a crap about the rest. Just do it. Okay? Let's just go ahead and override the veto and move on.
Yeah.
If I'm wrong, it needs to be rewritten.
Well,
Before I can support it.
Yeah, and I did read a quote, and I'm roughly paraphrasing this before we move on, from Governor Kelly, and the reasons she vetoed it specifically was because she felt like people were more concerned about inflation, were more concerned about finances and their pocketbook. So
She
that way
wants
we
the
should
legislature
focus on that rather than something else.
And I see you shaking your head. She wants the legislature to do their damn job. And their job is the budget. Folks, read our state constitution. Just like read our federal constitution. Congress's job is the budget. Do it. All this other stuff is just a sideshow. Go get job one done. Then we can talk about this other stuff.
And I would encourage people too. They have started to release some of that. The governor is putting forth some things to the legislature as far as increasing the amount of individuals that can be on Medicare, I think is what it's called. So it's very important. Attend legislative updates. There's some that are coming out. Watch your Newton Area Chamber of Commerce legislative update. Find out some of the things that are happening up there in Topeka. It's well within your ability and your right to get involved. And it seems like as we move forward, there's always less and less people that want to be involved. But it's so important that you're involved in what's going on.
Before we move on, I just ripped the legislature. But there's something that I feel like I need to say to Governor Laura Kelly, too. And here it is. Evaluate the bill that came onto your desk for the bill that it is. If you can support it, sign it. If you can't, don't. But don't give me the... Okay?
Yeah.
Let me rip the legislature and tell them they need to do their job. Look, Governor Kelly, your job is to evaluate that bill
And be straight about
for
it.
what it is.
Just be who you are about it. Don't try to sidestep the issue because of some of your voting base.
Don't make it
So
about
I'm going to
something
point
else.
it out again.
Yeah, no,
This is
that's
one of those
super
things
straight.
that makes
Yeah,
me
that is.
different,
It's a
right?
straight shooter
But-
right there. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, and if we did that, maybe we wouldn't get so confused.
But it keeps
and
everybody
honest.
honest.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's this too. It's like this is the political football. We want X, Y, or Z to happen, so it goes over to the other side because we're in this two-party system, and then all of a sudden it gets twisted around, and they kick it back over, but they kick it back over throwing some other issue on top of it.
Well,
right?
Can I say two-party
and again,
disease
yes,
system?
exactly.
Sickness that we find
And
ourselves.
My left toes rotting off.
Hey,
Just
don't
to
try
put
to
a-
pretend like you guys are not 100% in one camp or the other. We don't do that. We don't believe that.
So just to put
I'm
a
pretty
finer point
conservative,
on it.
but I know some crazy people on my side of the
Yeah.
aisle. I'm like, oh boy,
I know
your eyes are
crazies on every
Dude,
side of the
I've
aisle,
seen people
man.
with crooked eyes for real, for real. They look at me and I'm like, whoa.
that's my voting base.
But in relation to this bill, I want to put a finer point on it for our governor. If you're going to walk out there and say, well, I'm going to veto this because I think that the legislature has more important things to do, because that's in essence what she said. And yeah, I agree with you. They do have more important things to do. I think I just detailed that. What do you think you just did by vetoing the bill? You went and made sure that they're going to take even more time for this.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. And speaking, okay, now this is interesting, and I'll float over this as far as the legislature is concerned in the state of Kansas. I really want for us to consider and be very careful with this mantra of cut. Okay, because taxes are revenue that the government needs to operate, and I know that there's a lot of bloated stuff. I mean, there's waste in anything. I mean, when you get into anything in my life. In retail, when I was in retail, or in manufacturing, when I was in manufacturing, it really is all about cutting waste. Having too much waste will absolutely sink any kind of an organization, be it a public entity or be it a private entity. So there's a big focus on that. We're talking about Dodge and what they're trying to accomplish. I'm watching really close on this here, and the reason why I'm watching close on it is because just because we have revenue today doesn't mean that we won't have expenditures that are unforeseen in the future. So if we go on this path of cutting because we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 5 years down the road, that's not... I would much rather be in a situation where we continue to shore up our savings for a rainy day fund, if that's what's needed, than to go back to, and I'm just going to say it, the Brownback years, where we cut so much out of the budget because that's what people wanted. It did very little for everybody's individual pocketbook. It might have been a little better for businesses here or there, but it got to the point where all of a sudden we're like, wait a second, we cut too much. We had something happen. We're not getting the kind of revenue that we needed before. We have this infrastructure,
they
didn't adjust, and then
they were so prideful, they stood on it.
Here's something
when they should have said, "Oh, you know what? We didn't see this coming, so we're going to have to readjust." The pride made them stand on it, and that's where it swung real hard.
Here's something that happened in the Brownback era that a lot of people don't talk about. But when it happened, I made a mental note because I wanted to talk about this in my own company because I believed my own company was doing this. So they made cut after cut after cut after cut after cut after cut. Then he brought in a consultant and said, find me more. And he was very specific. There was a specific department he wanted. He wanted to go after the Department of Revenue. So find me some cuts in the Department of Revenue. And the consultant came back and said, actually, you're not spending enough in the Department of Revenue. You have gotten rid of so many people that who you have left cannot do their jobs and be efficient.
Which ultimately means that we as citizens are the ones that are not getting the services that we deserve based upon what they're there to do. I tell you, anytime you call the government, you're going to be on hold for a long time.
And straight up. So, Brownback course corrected. That was the smart thing to do. He did what was right. My company didn't course correct. And now we're stuck. We're stuck in this spot. We don't have enough people to be efficient and do the job. We just don't.
But surely there is, Chad, okay, so...
so that's, I'm just...
Yeah.
That's that's something that happened in the brownback era. We need to make sure that we avoid doing that again.
Well, and coming back local, you can just county, this can go state. While we're resting here, state or less, because we're going to move into the federal government, some of the things that are going on, along with, our day-to-day life, the things that are out of our control that really can't, that have affected our local lives, our local municipalities, but they can do little about, is this idea that investment is bad, or that we don't want to make investments in something because an investment costs money, but not realizing that by making this investment, you're saving money over the long run, right? So
we don't have a good handle on what an investment really is.
I like to equate it to analogies.
We
Chad.
have a confusion over what is an investment and what is an expense. They are not the same thing.
Very good call. Andy, agreed with that? Or do you want me to throw the next topic on you?
Yeah. I agree with most of what's happening with looking at budgets and where things are going. And there's 400 and whatever different arms like this one arm that we're looking into right now. And some of what I'm seeing there is shocking. USAID is the one that they really dug into, just as a little getting algorithms put together and figuring out how the systems are going to track checks to where they go and all the things that they're doing to gather. And they are also providing a digital footprint, because there will probably be some chasing down of some legal issues here in the near future. I'm sure of it, and that's why the data is being gathered before people can dump servers and stuff, and people are worried about why they're gathering that. Well, there's a reason, because I guarantee you there's other pockets and other people dumping servers and stuff right now because they're seeing what's happening over here. But I think it'll all unfold over time. I hope that we don't cut too close to the bone, because there are going to be some programs that hurt some people that need the money, but there's a lot of programs that I'm seeing right now that don't need the money, that's getting thrown away into these sex transition things in other countries and all kinds of other stuff around just that one topic.
Buying condoms in Gaza.
Yeah, well, and there's a lot of
but they actually didn't go to Gaza?
Well, they never went.
Okay, so but the details are the details. Condoms shouldn't be going anywhere for $50 million.
I made this point to Todd Tehart's face. Okay? If these things are bad, they're bad, and you can tell the truth and be factual about what's going on, and they're bad.
And I think it'll come out.
We don't need to distort it. We don't need to distort it.
You're right.
Yeah,
you don't need
agreed.
to.
Well, and but that goes back to well, there's a couple things here, okay? Two-part issues, so I'm sure we can marry them together, but if we can't, I just want to get your guys' take on it. Inflation, will it continue to go up, or will it come down with everything that's going on? And the other one is free speech, media, and the White House. So as far as that's concerned, I started to see some free speech things that I thought were really good. The Trump administration started making way for different news organizations or different entities, maybe even opinion, Breitbart, the rest of them to come in and they have really opened up the White House press secretary's room to like standing room only. So many different people could be at the table. But I just saw a situation where one of the entities was removed, the AP, it was reported, was removed from being able to, be at the table because they didn't report something the way the Trump administration wanted to. So two-part issue here, okay?
It happened on the last time, and it's happening now on this, and that was one of my concerns, was the overcorrection. I was concerned about that because that's what people tend to do when they have power. It was happening with the Biden administration with what's her name. It was very obvious. The people she would call on, the people she wouldn't call on.
It's always the same all the time.
The softball questions, all those things. And you'd get one person go on the interviews and then another person go sit with those same interviewers. And it was a very different tone, very different type of questions set that they had for people. But now it's overcorrecting, and it's overcorrecting, but going on the other side And I fear that was going to happen. I see them teeing up things and the new world of media, the way it's being projected with the podcasts and the people that are following suit with the Trump train message, which again, I like most of it. But I'm very concerned that we go too far where we start silencing other voices that have some really good questions that we might not want to hear.
Just
Because
doing the same thing going the other way.
A lot of us want to hear what's popular, and we want to be a part of the cool kids club, and people do change jerseys, outfits, teams really quick, and that's the environment that's being created for us to follow like puppets right now. So if we don't be careful, we don't keep a critical eye on it, yes, the promises are being followed through.
Yeah.
They are. But what else is surrounding that? How is it being done? And I have some concerns. That's all I can kind of say at this point because it's so new and so fresh, and there's a lot going on.
Chad, inflation first, because I know you're a media guy. I know you're the Chad Fry the Kansan guy, so that was some low hanging fruit for you. but are we gonna? I mean, is there?
It went up a point.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
So I will say this: it's slowed, but at the same time, you know, all of these things that are in motion right now, are we going to see this inflation just stagnate?
I think it's a gamble. I think they're using tariffs and negotiation tools, and while we're working on some tax cuts and some other stuff on this side, hoping that the levers could move at the right time, and that's a gamble. And that's what I see, because there's levers being moved right now for the headlines. And if that doesn't go right, I hope we don't do what Brownback did and stick to the course if we find out something else is different and we're able to adjust appropriately, because pride can really kill some things.
Yeah, it can.
So we'll see. And we've got a prideful leadership team right now.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we do.
It is what it is.
When has inflation gone down?
I don't think ever. It goes up about 2.5 to 3% a year. That's why when you get your 2% raise every year, it doesn't keep up with inflation, and that's been happening since the 70s. So the cost of living has been going up for every household. Now we have two breadwinners, most households working to try to make a little bit less than one did in the 1960s and 70s. So
there's the answer to your question.
You got to make
there's the answer to your question.
Yeah.
Is it going to continue? Yeah, it never goes down.
we're getting rid of pennies for a reason.
You know?
Yeah, which is something else we'll cover here.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm not. I don't know how I feel about getting rid of the penny when I take a look at the broader spectrum in the situation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
can we talk about the nickel?
Well, it doesn't cost as much money. It doesn't cost as much money. Okay, well, so we'll jump to the power of the penny. What's the real cost of a penny? It is known that it takes anywhere from 2 to 2.5 cents to make 1 penny.
Do you know what it costs to make a nickel?
I think it was almost 4.
Now it's well, in inflation, it's quite possible.
It's
do you
almost
know what
4
it
is what
costs
I've
to make a nickel?
No, I don't.
13.9 cents.
Okay, so if we're going to talk about this, that is interesting.
Now here's why I bring that up. We do away with the penny. I walk into Dillon's with cash. They're going to make sure that they're pricing everything so that they don't have to deal with pennies. And I don't either. So if after taxes, right now, I'm buying something that's going to cost me $11.56. We get rid of the penny, what's it going to cost me then?
Oh, $11.60.
Yeah, the psychology behind the pricing, though, there could be some arguments there. I hear you, but here's what I think. You ready for what I think?
Here's what that is. A digital currency to me.
Here's
100%.
Here's what that is, man. That's a phantom inflationary. What's the word I'm looking for?
You're Chad Fry the Kansan guy.
That's a phantom. That's a phantom inflationary force. All right.
So
and everybody is going to pay that.
I think there was a time when you could take a quarter, take your girlfriend to movies, buy 2 sodas and a popcorn.
Those people are still alive.
And a $100 bill in your wallet at the time was pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Given that circumstance, that was a heavy $100 bill. You had 3 $100 bills tucked away in your mattress. You had some security.
Yeah.
Things are changing. Inflation has been up and up and up and up, and it's not going to stop. At what point do we not be forced to change how we're looking at money? and how we spend money and how we operate because the currency system is broken. The dollar,
Well,
we're trying to protect the American dollar.
Yeah.
At what point do we, and then when I say
Look
we,
at house prices.
I'm
Look at
talking we,
everything.
the people,
All unaffordable.
start demanding that living wages be paid.
Well, that's part of the big system, the big process, and there's a lot that has to happen for that to.
Well,
in the
Talk about value
and
of
so
an
I'm not-
employee, though. I mean,
well,
you know, like,
when you're in a capital-
every employee has value.
When you're-
Period.
good call.
Yeah,
but I'm
but
saying,
when you're in a capitalist
period.
society, though,
No, every employee has value. That's and I'm going to get labeled a Marxist for making that statement.
Marxist.
Okay,
I've read the books.
You
That's
commie,
why I'm a
you.
capitalist.
Okay, so let me clarify what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if we take somebody that
Everybody
is just-
has value.
Yeah, I'm not saying that people don't
every
have
employee,
value.
though, employees are different. And what I have an issue with is when people are beaten. Look at what happened in California. That's a perfect example. How many restaurants left California because they forced the minimum wage hike on restaurants? And now people are complaining that stuff keeps going up and spiraling out of control. Insurance companies are leaving. Why?
Oh, well,
Like they don't care about competition. They want everything to be a level playing field, and it's not how it works in this world that we've created.
this is the problem I see. Okay, and this is what I meant. So if I said something incorrectly, let me clarify what I'm saying. If right now you have somebody that's a trade, they have a trade, they're a welder, a machinist, something that requires skill or training to be able
Skilled
to accomplish, right? And then the value of what a company can levy as far as to make off of that incorporated into their. So we get into the weeds here, but let's say. Somebody with skilled laborers average wage is $20 an hour, and somebody that's just labor only is $7.50 an hour. If you raise that $7.50 an hour to $15 an hour, but the person that has the skilled labor stays at $20 an hour, then what kind of upset are you actually creating unless everybody gets that?
It's why a guy like me
wage
can't build a
increase.
business today and have 50 people working for me because of all those things. It was different even 30 years ago than it is today. To build a company today, the lift on that is so hard because of the expense of everything it takes to get it done, plus the benefits, plus the taxes on every person that you employ. You cover some of those pieces. They're paying taxes, but you're paying taxes too on that. I mean, there's multiple layers that you get hit on, and it's overwhelming. It's
and
really,
I
really hard.
understand that. Here's when I say livable wage, I really believe it is ridiculous that we look at people and say, you're going to have to work 80 hours a week, and when you're done at the end of the month,
You're going to break even.
maybe,
Yeah.
you know, I'm sorry you've been having to skip lunch every day so that your kids can eat. I got a problem with that. I have a serious problem with that. If we are, as we say we are, the richest, most powerful nation on earth, the idea that you go out and work a full-time job and are in poverty should be offensive to every person who lives here.
I think it is. It can be, and I'll use this analogy of when you're working like in a restaurant. That's why I'm really interested in this hospitality thing that we'll be working on. When you start in that restaurant, if you don't have exposure to knowing that that's the beginning stage and you want to continue to figure out how you can move up in whatever system you're in, I do know that there are some people that are where they're at, they get capped because of their IQ, their potential. There's different things that hold different people
Sometimes
back.
work ethic.
Life experience.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that happen to people that hold them back at some stage in that growth game. But the person that's working at McDonald's for 20 years that has a lot of potential to do different things, maybe never gotten showed how to do that differently. And so somebody else that's waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning and going to sleep at midnight and doing all the extra things and not very smart, but doing all the extra work. That's why they have to, like somebody like me who's dyslexic, who can't read a book very well, but I read every day all the time. And it may take me 8 to 10 hours. It takes you to read 3 hours. A book that takes you 3 hours to read would take me about 8 to 10 hours. that's just the extra work I have to put in to be average at that part.
So what you're saying is when you guys went on family vacation, you packed one book. I usually packed a dozen just for the drive.
I packed one book and I read it really well. But I will tell you though, because of my struggle, when I read something, I really hold on to it. So there's another side to that. What people think is a deficiency is actually a gift. But it takes time to get there, and some people are never able to mature that because they don't find the right mentor. They don't get into the right books on accident, or maybe their circle of influence didn't give them those books at the right times. So there's a lot of, I think, some serendipity and things that happen differently for everybody. But going out and hunting for that next layer, that next level of income is part of our job in a country like this, as far as I'm concerned, because my grandfather came up here, worked fields and baked and did all the jobs that nobody wanted to do for me to have an opportunity. So he did the work through lunch, left at 4 a.m, came back at midnight. I don't know how he did it, but he did it from as long as I can remember until one day he didn't have to anymore, right? Because he had enough Social Security and all that stuff to be able to retire. And for him, that was okay. But he gave me the opportunity and taught me that this country is an oyster, right? You got to go out there and work for it and beat the ground. And it's the way the American system works. And there is a lot of wealth and there's a lot of poverty, but there's a lot more wealth. And if you go to other countries and you see how they live, the amount of poverty we have is not really poverty.
Well, can I say this? Okay, I think
it hurts differently because of what we see here and what we have access to. But it's not like what I've seen when I was in Mexico not too long ago. Like real poverty. It's a different world.
Yeah, and I want to say this, and this is my thoughts alone. Listening to what we're talking about, it's almost like we're gravitating and could quite easily transfer over to the conversation of equality versus equity, and then not only that, but this realization that this country is fair, as in everybody can go get a job if they want a job. We'll say 90% of the time, but it doesn't mean that just because you work 80 hours a week that somehow or another the spoil goes to the person that works the hardest, or that the spoil goes to the person that is the smartest. That's just not. There's that element of it not being fair. So we're fair, but we're not fair. We're equal, but we're not equitable. And I want to move on to the very last topic that we got. I apologize I didn't say it at the beginning of the program like I should have. But will Gaza be the 51st state of America?
Lord, I hope not.
Greenland,
Do we really? I mean, honestly, do we really want that flipping headache?
The power of positive thinking only goes so far in my mind sometimes. I'm going,
I love it.
That's why you lose people, dude. Come on. Come on. What is that? So I don't know. That is wild to me.
We need to go buy a part of the Red Sea and just put a
into
floating island out there for us to live on.
Do we really want to get that involved in a conflict that is older than our nation?
And this is exactly what I told Lance.
Yeah.
I think we had a quick chat and you said you were going to put that on there, and I
blow it up.
I was like, that part of the world does not want us there, and we don't need to be there.
American imperialism.
And you know what? If we've done so much damage, frankly. I don't know. I would say if we left, they'd forget about us in 5 years.
Oh no,
they're gonna hate us for like generations.
This is where I'm checking myself.
Them dudes are still fighting the Crusades from the 700s. Okay,
we just put ourselves in the middle of it.
Yes, we did.
I'm trying to say that as respectfully as I can. You hear what I'm saying?
I know your heart, so I know that's real.
I mean, them dudes, they don't forget.
And we put ourselves in there.
Yeah.
As on their checklist of don't forget.
Well, just like Europe, I mean, Great Britain or England did. I mean, when they went in there, they broke all the countries down in a way in which would put a majority Sunni population here and a minority Shiite population. And then in a country right next to it, you got a majority Shiite population and a minority. And then
let's get into this. Yeah. Why would Trump say something like that?
Oh.
Can we just do opinions, or is that too much?
I mean, so
Why would he? What is your opinion on why he would do that?
I think he's the art of marketing. I think that he understands that if you continue to make sure, and I'm not going to say throw out these gaffes, but I truly believe that. Okay, I'll say this first and foremost. Trump, I like what he's doing because I've oftentimes asked the question, if we are the United States of America and we believe that we are the last beacon of hope across the world.
He believes that.
Okay. Then why wouldn't we consider, and we talked about this on the program before, I said that, the 13 territories, I think we have 13 territories that are territories of the United States, but they're not states. Whether they want to be states or not, I'm not saying go in and be like, hey, you're going to be a state. But I don't understand why we don't open up our country to be able to have 51st state, 52nd, 53rd. And I think it's important in today's globalist society that if we're going to be in this situation, that I'm in agreement with that.
So when he threw out Canada, I thought it was pretty disrespectful to their country. And then I started listening to some of these Canadians online, and I was like,
go America!
Dang, there's some parts of this country that are like, please bring us in. I've had to wait 2 years to get an appointment with my doctor, and you hear all these things that you don't really realize is happening over there. But then you realize your algorithms are putting those Canadians in front of you because of how I'm profiled online. Yeah. And you realize, well, there's a whole nother group of Canadians, if you look, that are not happy about what we say. 100%. Yeah. It'd be like somebody doing that's America, and that's not right. Yeah. Right? So, okay. Right.
Yeah, because there's another group of Canadians.
And let me say the United States, because America...
that I hung out with for several weeks.
Yeah, they were fired up.
And their entire attitude when I was there, and I was there to do mission work, and they were constantly saying to me, go take care of your own crap first.
You got
what
your own
doing up here? What are you doing up here telling me how to live? You got to go take care of your own crap first.
Yep.
And I got that same attitude when I went to Belfast. And I was like, man,
So we have that going on, right?
Yeah.
And there's negotiations, and he's playing games with Trudeau because Trudeau stepped on stupid. And so, but they're changing that out, and that country's taking care of that. Yep. And the road they're going on sounds like a lot of what we're doing. They're doing big audits and stuff right now, actually, with the new change of leadership. So whatever, we'll see what happens there. But I thought it was disrespectful. Then I heard these guys and I thought, oh, maybe there's a chance here. Then I heard the other ones like, oh, okay. Nope, Trump's just being Trump. And there's something he's doing behind the scenes. And then he talked about Greenland. Then he talked about then he started talking though about the strategic placement to protect ourselves. And that may be a little bit better. And there's maybe something there. Then he started talking about assets and land. And I thought, that sounds like a serious conversation. When you start talking about assets and land and minerals and all the stuff that can be done out there. So I thought he's probably pretty serious about that one. And then he throws Gaza out there. And I'm going, what the hell kind of 3D jacked up chest is this?
Well, okay.
Oh, man. I put a resort out in Gaza. And then I'm going, now I can't take Greenland serious now either, because I was kind of starting to go, is that possible? Maybe. And then you do that, and I'm going, this guy's a nut.
It goes back to this.
What is he distracting us from? What are people distracting? What is the chess he's playing that we don't know, the leaders? Why did he say what he said in front of the guy sitting next to him at the podium and got that look? And I'm going, something's going on. And I'm just hoping.
We're going to take over the world. That's what we're going to do. We're going to go invade Greenland.
That's the message.
Invade Greenland, invade Canada, invade Mexico, and call it the North American United States of America.
If I'm as pissed off as I am about people burning our flag in marches.
No, this is me going, no, Chad, you cannot say that.
Yeah, don't get us in trouble.
I'm just sitting
Here's
here.
what I'm going to say. If I'm as pissed off as I am about people burning my flag, my country's flag, and then I take a step back and put myself in those countries and think about what's being said by our leader, that pisses me off. Straight up. I mean,
any kind of patriotism that you have in your own country. I mean, Mexicans are proud to be from Mexico.
Yeah,
you know?
I think we need to get to the part where the USA needs to be the USA. We need to untangle from all the stuff. We need to stop trying to be we have to have strategic placements in certain part of the world to protect ourselves, but we need to be real careful with those relationships and realize that we are there to be, for the reasons we're there, be honest about it, but stay out of their business, and be direct about that. But America and the USA needs to be us, and we need to untangle. And I think the more talks we have that stir up stuff like that out in the world, to me, it's just unhealthy. because I will tell you, I was furious when I saw our flag being burned by our own countrymen. That really bothered me.
And to be able to call it free speech.
Yeah, that to me, there needs to be a consequence. I just can't stand that. And I've had friends that have given up a lot to fight for this country and that deal with things today because of what they went to do on behalf of our country. And I'm not sure. I don't want to disrespect them, so I'll just stop right there. But I'm not sure what I see in a couple people in particular that I love very much that went over there to fight for us and what they have to deal with. I'm not sure if the cost to that family was worth the squeeze on that one.
And even then, I mean, when you consider the fact that many of these individuals of our age group went over there, it was a war for 20 plus years, just in our lifetime.
That's right.
And then all of the choices that different administrations made that just spit in the face of all of our military men and women. It's sad.
horrible.
Chad, say what you want to say, but
No.
you can't get us on an FBI list. I don't want to be on an FBI watch list. I don't.
If
need
you
the
don't want to be
CIA.
on the FBI watch list, I need to keep my mouth shut.
I can't wait till that recording goes off.
All right, okay. So I think I'm getting better at doing this. We covered all the topics that we were going to cover in just a little bit over an hour. So kudos to all of us. No feelings were hurt. I don't believe in this
somebody's
making
gonna
of
be pissed
this.
off about something.
Yeah, we laughed.
Not
when we
in this
shouldn't have
room.
laughed.
Somebody else is,
Yeah,
right?
we'll have our real talk when we get off.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
I'm gonna go home, drink some whiskey, and be fine.
Chad has had a day.
By the way, it's called larceny. Just so you know, my favorite whiskey is called larceny.
Oh my God! You drink? I'm offended.
I drink
I'm
larceny.
Offended. I'm offended. I'm gonna go have a glass of chocolate milk.
There you go.
Something that would offend somebody else. Well, okay. So, anywho, just
Why
want
can't
to
it be
give
white milk?
I know, right? You know
we
what?
offended somebody.
I drink white milk. I drink chocolate milk. I mix the milks together at times and drink
Come
white
on,
chocolate milk.
take a side. Just take a side. There's no two sides here anymore.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
You're on the right or the left. That's it.
Is that your last word, Andy? Because otherwise, you got a last word. What do you got for us, my man?
Man, hold on to the people close to you. And hold on to the people a layer outside of that to the best of your ability, and take care of each other. It's some interesting times right now, but remember to keep your people close. That's it.
Chad, what do you got for us, my man?
Well, you kind of set a tone there, so here it is.
tried.
End on a high note. End on a high note.
Yeah. I hope my dad actually watches this podcast. He watches from time to time. But my brain was mush because I spent my entire day at Newton Medical Center. And I tell you, what a gift this community has got.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Man, I'll tell you, that place is so amazing. And the doctors there are incredible. And my dad spent a lot of hours under the knife. And I had to leave before he actually woke up. So this is my first opportunity to say, man, I love you. And I hope we can get you back on your feet again. And the road to recovery is going to be long. It's going to be hard, but I'm going to be there for all of it.
Pulling for you, buddy.
Pulling for you, Chad's dad. I just got to say this, no cliches, but if people are more focused on how you reacted instead of how they treated you or what they did to you to cause your reaction, that's called manipulation. Put that in your brain, folks. Have a good week, everybody.
That sounded like a hidden message. Brought to you by